This week on Men Don't Talk.
So you, Andy, might have said, well, um, I've never called anybody the N-word, or I've never called anybody, and I've got black friends, I've got black cousin, I've got, I wear black shoes, it's
Not
not
with jeans, not with blue jeans. I don't.
well,
That's over there. I'm not up for that.
Exactly. Right. I'm going to find a video of your own, and I'm going to send it to you to manipulate you psychologically, to weaken your argument, for you to think, right, okay, there's a black person that's even saying what we.
I had that today through I think it was Denzel Washington and Morgan Freeman. So I said, unfortunately, their experience, they're two Hollywood powerhouses. Their experience in the day-to-day world is so much different,
The police officers would visit primary school, okay? And in my primary school, I remember the police officer said, oh, we're going to play a game today. We're going to take all of your fingerprints. My fingerprints were taken at 7 years old. The whole fingerprints were taken.
Okay, perfect. And thank you again for joining us for another Men Don't Talk podcast. It's been a climatic week or 2 weeks so far across the board, across the nation. And I think, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, there's probably been enough arguments amongst each other in different elements of society, and it's uncomfortable for everyone. So with Men Don't Talk today, all we wanted to do was have an opportunity to maybe just ask those odd questions. We've got a good mixed bunch on the podcast regularly from people with disabilities, myself from a minority, Righteous from a minority, and we bring on a range of different guests with different experiences. Obviously, it's a hot topic at the moment, and I think today's kind of core was maybe the Black British experience, and also maybe to talk about solutions. The one thing I think we've all identified is there is a lot of talk about the actual issues that are happening, but not a lot of solutions being discussed as much as perhaps we would all like. So today we've brought on a very special guest. We've got a gentleman by the name of Damian Bloomfield. So he's a Manchester well-known musician. He's a church social activist, especially focusing around kind of black issues within the church domain, and obviously bringing that into the greater wider population. He's one guy that you'd probably ask those questions to if you're stuck, or you'd help you have a bit of research. And I've had to look at myself this week in terms of relationships I've had with friends or do have with mates, and it's just that awkward, difficult conversation that maybe between ethnic minorities that we've never really had. So hopefully, we've got the platform today to have that conversation. No judgment, no condemnation, but keeping it honest, but hopefully finding some solutions through it. So we've got our regular hosts to join us: Andy, Paddy, Righteous, give us all a wave, and our special guest, Damian Bloomfield. Damian, welcome.
Oh, thank you very much, Dalu. Great to be here.
Excellent. So you're a family man. You've obviously seen the headlines at the moment. And Andy, if you just lead us in with the first question. Obviously, you had a good introduction off air. So I think if we can just kind of repeat that or take a retake, that would be brilliant.
Yeah. So I want to open this forum up as kind of an idea for ears, really. Certainly from a personal point of view, I think there's a lot of judgment. There's a lot of people kicking in with, should people be out there when it's COVID? And there's a lot of complicated situations going on. People have seen snippets of videos, and some of those videos horrific, and it's all going viral. And from a personal point of view, I've said this before on the podcast, I spent the first good half of my life with my mouth open and my ears shut. And I'm trying my best to reverse that. And I think it'd be great to use this kind of forum, if possible, to listen to personal stories. You know, like, what does it actually mean? What's it meant for you, Dalu? What's it meant for you, Righteous Damien? You know, what does that mean to you? And even Paddy, you know, like, I just think it'd be a great thing. And I'm really, really interested to hear what people have got to say. And then maybe, like you say, there are solutions in there, but God knows if I've got any. But I would love to open my ears up, and hopefully we all would too, and have an open and frank conversation around things.
Absolutely. So, yeah, Damien, what are your thoughts? What's been kind of been on your mind? How have you been processing the last couple of weeks? Your life?
Yeah. Just to pick up on something that Andy said, he said, you know, there were people that are complaining about protesting through COVID. This should be indicative of how important it is for people to protest through COVID. Let's bear in mind that there have been other protests through COVID. So, or other celebrations, for instance. So, as in the VE Day celebration and other celebrations. So, we've got to see the gravity of the situation for the Black community. If you're going to hear about social distancing and you know, all of these restrictions, yet people are so tired of the situation that they're going to protest, it should give you some, what I mean, not you personally, but it should be indicative of some kind of gravity and seriousness of how the situation has got. You know, let's just kind of sort of frame things. George Floyd, the murder of George Floyd, is the tip of a proverbial iceberg. So, you know, sometimes in Britain, people are very, let's say, covert. So they're like, well, you know, this doesn't happen in the UK. You know, we don't shoot guns. You know, our police aren't as brutal, etc., etc. You know, if we take a few steps back, America was colonized by the UK. So the UK is the bedrock of institutional racism. So that's only symptomatic. The George Floyd situation is only symptomatic. So what it is that it's a trigger. When we see that, we start to look at our own mortality as Black people, and we start to see, well, you know, where do I stand in this? So that's what triggers people. Also, let me just pick up on something else. Sometimes the language, you know, people say things like, well, I'm not a politician, or it's not a political situation. Well, we're talking about human rights. So we have Black Lives Matter, the organization, and we have Black Lives Matter, the statement. So I posted something on Facebook and Instagram that you may not agree with everything about the organization, but the statement is true in and of itself, that Black Lives Matter. Now, obviously, there's a retort that says all lives matter, okay? But the fact of the matter is, if you say all lives matter, it is a denialist statement, because it is being inclusive and it's stating the obvious. Obviously, we all know all lives matter, but then if you keep hearing Black Lives Matter, you have to question, why is that being said? And then when you drill down even more, so Black lives are mattering when it's entertainment, when it's sport, when it's you know, bringing glory to the UK or England, or, you know, Black lives have mattered when it was Daley Thompson, when it was Tessa Sanderson, when it's Lenny Henry. Black lives are mattered, okay? But when it comes to police brutality, when it comes to education, when it comes to you know, just representation in society, then this is where Black lives haven't mattered. So that is why the statement has to be said. I think we're in a time now okay to be in a unapologetically black, as it to say, it's okay to say, look, I'm a black man, I'm a black woman, I'm tired. There are a lot of people tired out there. I'm tired of explaining. I'm tired of, the double standards, as I said about the VE Day and the Black Lives Matter celebrations. I'm tired of when I put my hand up and say this issue is an issue, then it's almost like, white people individually take it personally and feel that, we're having a go at them. And it's not, if you talk about the white...
Sorry, Damian, sorry. Just wait a second there. There's a little bit of a break in the Wi-Fi there, the signal. Is everyone picking him up?
I think it's the thunder, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Just in case you were pulling faces, you're thinking, oh, are they responding to me? it's just finding it.
No, it's not bad.
Yeah. So I think if we talk about the white race as a collective, it's not necessarily talking about individuals. So you, Andy, might have said, well, I've never called anybody the N-word, or I've never called anybody, and I've got black friends, I've got black cousin, I've got, I wear black shoes, and that sort of thing has been said. But I'm just saying, that's how ridiculous it can get. It's not
not with blue jeans. I don't.
Oh,
that's over there. I'm not up for that.
Exactly. I bet you like black pudding as well, but it's not necessarily a personal and defensive thing. It's to, as you said, you're gracious enough to say, well, let's listen, let's not take it personally, let's see where other people are coming from, and let's kind of, solutionize in that way. So
Absolutely. I mean, I had a good conversation with someone this week, and it surprised them when I said, as a taxpayer, regardless of color, do you know that the last abolition slavery tax bill was completed in 2015? So the last slave owner was paid off in 2015 from all of our tax funds. And you can Google it, you can research it, you can look it up, and it will tell you the exact amount, where the family went to. And I think I did a podcast last week, so I know Andy's got Righteous has got a couple of questions, but I just put it in very layman's terms for people that do get uncomfortable with it being a race matter. Jeffrey Epstein was able to buy the Miami Police Department and covertly run an operation for his paedophile ring. Yeah. This was one man for one evil plot. Now, as Damian said, it's not every white man. We're not saying, Paddy, Andy, Ben, Dan are racist. We're just saying that there is a systematic thing within industry, within lots of different sectors, that there are gentlemen that will have private investment interests that they will protect, that they have influence to buy judicial systems, that they have systems in place to influence society, and unfortunately, when I explain the caste system globally, this goes globally, black people are always at the bottom, and there's not a time that I've mentioned that there's no one's disputed it. In the caste system, it would probably go black, Asian, Chinese, Asian, and then you got the white European, kind of Italian, Germany, etc., Polish, and then white British, white USA, and that's unfortunately how it's been. And it's just now it's at a stage, as Damian said, people, I'm tired of talking about racism. Like, I'm exhausted, mate. I've had arguments where I've had to say, no, this actually did happen. Oh no, you're paranoid, you're putting on, and then you just go, all right, I'll leave it. And that, so Andy, sorry, Righteous, did you have a question there?
It was more just an add-on, basically, about what was being said about black people being okay as long as they're entertaining and, contributing to the greater glory of England. I mean, this has been punctuated twice, actually. Once in an American setting and one in an English setting. If you remember, not so long ago, LeBron James had something to say about the current situation, and the retort he received from a couple of people, in fact, was basically shut up and dribble.
Yeah.
You know, and it happened over here as well, much more recently with now you'll have to forgive me because I'm not a football
Raheem
guy at all,
Sterling
but,
and Marcus
the
Rashford.
Yeah, Rashford recently made it possible for kids to get like free dinners, something like that. And it wasn't exactly what was said to LeBron, but the sentiment behind it was essentially shut up and dribble. So there is a lot of truth that is very apparent when people talk about black people being okay as long as they're just singing or dancing or dribbling. And considering what's going on right now affects them as well, shouldn't they also be able to talk about it? I mean, are you exempt from being black if you're famous? I mean, you know, what's that about?
Mm. What can I jump in, Dalu?
Yeah, of course. This is open forums. So just keep it going, keep it flowing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's explore the thing about protest. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm very much for protest. And, you know, it was a Negro spiritual. There was a song that we sung in the Pentecostal church growing up, even in the civil rights era. It's the first line was, "We've come this far by faith." But I've also said, we've come this far by protest. Because, and I'm talking about, let me differentiate. There is protesting, and there is anarchy, and there is looting. They are not the same.
Absolutely, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact is, you know, Rosa Parks, you know, she protested, and she's, you know, didn't want to give up her seat at the back of the bus. Dr. King protested, and let's also say there have been white allies in the protests as well. So we have to protest and we have to lobby. The fact of the matter is, if we had, there are people now saying, and I've been into my local Tesco, and there's a white lady that was saying she's in a relationship with a black man, and she was in the cafeteria, and some of her colleagues were like, "Oh, what's all this protesting about? There are other fish to fry, etc., etc." Now, the fact of the matter is, you know, there had to be some level of lobbying to even have. When you look at adverts now, when you look at Fairy Liquid advert, you can have a black person in the kitchen washing up. Okay, that wasn't the norm 30 years ago. Okay, because we were relegated to. I'm sure you guys remember Look My Neighbor and Mind Your Language and those kind of derogatory stereotypes of black people and Jim Davidson and Burning Manning and that kind of thing. So we've had to get this far to have some level of representation. Now there's other levels of representation, i.e., you know, in our schools we need to be taught Black history, not as Black history, but it's the history of the UK, and some of it will not be comfortable because some of it will touch on slavery, etc., etc. You know, our Black children that are in nursery need to know that there are Black dolls. They need to know about Black heroes in their books, because not everybody's hair is straight, and not everybody's hair is blonde, and not everybody has straight noses, right? That has to be the norm. That, you know, we celebrate these differences because children can get complexes. They can feel that if all they're seeing is a white Barbie, and if that's what they're, you know, that's what's the norm to them, they could develop a complex. And let me use that as a segue. What white allies need to understand is that not everybody that looks like us speaks on our behalf.
Thank you.
There are, and this is what, you know, I've had, and, you know, there are derogatory terms that, you know, go anywhere from coon, Oreo, coconut, Bounty, all the way Uncle Tom. Now you can understand the metaphor of something that is black on the outside and white on the inside. Okay, that is because, and then what also happens is, and you see this a lot in social media, you'll have a white person who wants to get their point across, and they feel like, right, I'm going to find a video of your own, and I'm going to send it to you to manipulate you psychologically, to weaken your argument, for you to think, right, okay, there's a black person that's even saying what we think.
I had that today through Candy Sewing and Denzel Washington, and all I could respond back was to say, I think it was Denzel Washington and Morgan Freeman. So I said, unfortunately, their experience, they're two Hollywood powerhouses. Their experience in the day-to-day world is so much different. You know, we have to go into a work environment. They can be off in a private island for 3 months Of course, they're not going to be pulled up and all these things happening to them. But again, it's kind of dismissing that experience that we have had, and that's what's frustrating about receiving those videos. That video doesn't take away that my mum has been chased out when she was going to offer care for someone who was elderly, just because she was black and the family didn't want her around. Go fuck off. We don't want that. We don't want your lot around. And she's a qualified nurse, a practitioner of health, trying to save a life. But your only thing is you don't want that because she's black. Now, you can send all the Candy Sewing videos you want, Denzel saying whatever he wants, but he's not speaking for the complete black continent of UK, USA, America, Brazil, you know, those that are living in Germany, China, all sorts. I'm just trying to reinforce what Damian was saying there.
I think it was Morgan Freeman, but what you've got to see about someone like Candace Owens is she's very, and if you don't know, Candace Owens is a political commentator in the US. She used to be Democrat and then she became Republican, but it's kind of, even the conservatives, the Republicans are sick of her because she's gone to an extreme of, even when it's clear that, like for instance, the whole George Floyd situation, she's demonizing him and saying that he's a criminal, even, you know, bringing up all of his rap sheet and saying that we are, in the black community, we are holding him up as a martyr. And, you know, she's saying there's no police brutality and there's no systemic racism in the police force. Now, if you see the video of someone like a Candace Owens, they're very angry, okay? So there's a lot of hurt there. You can see a lot of, you know, some of us in the black community have pulled ourselves up by meritocracy. So what we've done is we've studied, we've done this, and we've achieved a certain level. Now, sometimes others of us don't help us as black people because they criticize us, etc., etc. Now, the way out of that isn't to turn on your own race and to start blowing things out of proportion. The Candace Owenses of this world, they don't look at the full argument. So the full argument is that whether George Floyd was a criminal or not, okay, he still didn't deserve to be treated in that way because it's disproportionate. The punishment doesn't fit the crime. It's disproportionate. And, you know, if we look at the white middle class teenagers who shoot up schools and get led away and get, you know, psych consultations and the rights to attorneys and get Burger Kings and that kind of thing, you know, it is showing that there is disproportionate treatment of black, whether they're criminals or whether they're even convicted. And the fact is, you know, it's taken the whole world to protest to even get a conviction. Well, not even, you know, to even get on the radar for a charge, rather, not even a conviction and not even a trial. So this is showing how expensive a white life is compared to a black life, because if it was the other way around, we'd have been judged during the execution. So someone like a Candace, it's very kind of reactionary, very placatory to white ears, and to let me break this down to our allies even more. There's a self-hate within our own community.
Yeah,
an alignment. There's an alignment that, you know, if you align yourself with white ideals, you've made it, you're successful, etc., etc., etc. You know, and there are black people that have been successful by meritocracy, i.e., you know, Ben Carson and other individuals. But, you know, meritocracy alone isn't going to get us, you know, to equality. You know, if it was meritocracy alone, we would have got there a long time ago, because a lot of us were raised that we had to work twice as hard, to study twice as hard. We had to, you know, just always overthink everything that we're not going to offend. If we talk too loud, we're aggressive. If we, kind of, don't talk enough, then we're not articulate. So we've had that overthinking all about. That's what's inside the Black subconscious. And even then, we're still at an era now in 2020 where we've got to explain. So just to give you a heads up that not everybody that, as I said, as our hue or as our look is speaking on our behalf. So you've got to actually,
just like Tommy Robinson is not speaking on behalf of, just most of the people that we work with, or do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Andy and Paddy, I believe you had a couple of questions as well.
I just wanted to, it's a comment, and I'll let Paddy kind of jump in the question there. I think my take on it, like I might have mentioned at the start there, is that what cuts through all that are the stats right? Is that person right or wrong? The political debates, that kind of stuff. I just want to say my eyes opened like, whoa, as soon as Dalu, you started talking about the personal story there with your mother, and it's those personal experiences of what it's like. That's the stuff that cuts through for me, because I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who was like, the stats on this, the stats on that, you're right, the Denzel Washington says this, some other people say that, I'm not sure. And for me, it's about the personal experience. And I was like, I can't make any judgment. I'm nowhere near making any judgment, because I don't know what it's like to grow up with that experience. I don't know what it's like to be inside that experience. I don't know what it's like to be discriminated against in some ways, although I'm sure I have in some ways in my life. But yeah, I just think it's, I guess my question to Damian there is, like, from a young age, at what kind of age did you realise that there might have been a difference for you? Did you feel a difference at any kind of point, like Dalu mentioned today about his mum? And
good question. Now, I will say personally, I was brought up around a lot of Black people. So I was brought up in a predominantly Black Jamaican church background. I was brought up in a multicultural primary school and high school, albeit I was brought up in Moss Side. So I was kind of brought up around what you'd call my own people per se. But my parents were Windrush, so they came over here in the 1960s. So, the way how they socialized with other Black people, the way how they kind of had their defenses up, and the education, the kind of, I'm musically gifted, but my parents were like, you need to learn a trade. You need to get something in your head, not just the arts. You need to, get your maths, get your English, get these subjects, and go out there and actually, get a job in a professional capacity, not necessarily in a, working class, what you'd call a labouring position. Because not against anybody who's in a labouring position, but the point is, you were taught that you have to go twice as hard. You have to be, always looking over your shoulder. Don't trust, there's a lot of distrust among white people. In how I was, in the kind of circles that I was brought up in, and I think, going into primary school and high school, you did have some kids that would, push the boat out and call you a word or whatever. But by then, we talk about the early 80s, you could get expelled for that kind of thing. And, so I wouldn't say that I've experienced it as much as some of my colleagues that were brought up in white areas per se. For now, obviously I was brought up in Moss Side. When I got older, I actually now live in a suburban area because obviously I've been able to sell my property that was in Moss Side. Interestingly enough, there's also a class situation that went on. So when, you'd get what are called microaggressions. So when I was in college or when I was at work, people heard I was from Moss Side, they'd be making the jokes, did you take drugs and did you do, and let's be clear, there's accessibility to drugs in Bramhall. There's accessibility to drugs in a lot of white areas. let's be clear on this. So that I have not against anybody who does, but I'm not even smoking a cigarette. I've never even been drunk in my life. So the fact of the matter is, these stereotypes of what are known as microaggressions were very prevalent, where, people would listen to me. I've gone for job interviews and they've heard, my name is anglicized, Damian Bloomfield. When I turned up, they're like, oh, recruitment agencies said to me, oh, I thought you were white.
Yeah.
So
I get that for my voice all the time when I'm on the phone, and I used to do recruitment a lot, and I used to hear some appalling things, like, oh yeah.
It got worse as that, and the fact of the matter is there are a lot of people in, and let me touch on that quote unquote ghetto thing for a minute, right? There are a lot of decent, hardworking, law-abiding people that live in these areas, for instance, okay, that keep their houses well, that there are a lot of, so the postcode discrimination is real. I mean, my car insurance went down by about £200 when I moved around to where I live. So, that discrimination, that, people that from these poor, deprived areas that are ethnic minorities, they're doomed to failure. So the fact is, even if you didn't hear the overt name calling, there was a kind of, I remember in primary school, the police officers would visit primary school, okay? And in my primary school, I remember the police officer said, oh, we're going to play a game today. We're going to take all of your fingerprints. My fingerprints were taken at 7 years old. The whole fingerprints were taken. And kicking off going, you've got no right to do that. But I look at it in my mind's eye now. They had taken fingerprints. So that there was a kind of a latent ideology that some of these kids are not going to succeed. And we've got fingerprints. And sure enough, there are kids that I grew up with that have, gone to prison, that have committed suicide, and some of them are black. But what I'm saying is, there was almost that, kind of presumption that these guys are never going to amount to anything. So that's why I'm saying it's systemic, because I've had the police, living in Moss Side. Interestingly enough, I was leaving the Asda in Moss Side. Anybody knows where the Asda in Moss Side was? A police car followed all the way to my house. I turned the engine off, stepped out of the car, not because I was being confrontational, but because I was going in my house. So I asked the policeman wanted to see my documents. He waited outside my house till I went upstairs, got my driving license, got my insurance, and showed it. He said to me, oh, is it a full UK license? I said to him, I'm a British citizen. So he could have ran my plate, right? It's outside my address. So what I'm saying is, what more verification do you need? It was an escort. It was like this was in early 2000s, so it's like a 50-year-old escort. So it's not like it's not like I couldn't afford it. I was a professional at the time. So
absolutely,
it's you always have to overthink as to how you react, because if you react to a stereotype, then that's almost what is expected of you, because then you're going to be the violent,
chip on your shoulder.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we see that and we can, I follow American politics a lot. We see that, even in the whole President Trump situation. President Obama was with his wife, with his kids, never raised his voice in interviews. The way he had to be squeaky clean, because and his wife's been called ape, and he's been called, there's been memes of him saying hang in there Obama and all the things. He's called a lie. You had the picture of Jan Brewer, the senator, pointing her finger in his face, in the president's face, on the tarmac. And the fact of the matter is, as a black man, he knew that he couldn't react to that. But the white privilege of a President Trump, he can be derogatory, to racist and misogynistic, and all of these different behaviors, and nobody's going to question it, because you've got the let's face it, Britain, America is a republic, so there isn't a monarchy. So the president is at the top of the tree. So the white man at the top of the tree doesn't have to answer to anybody. So the fact is, and this is how it goes. But the black man who has to even to get anywhere near the top of the tree, he has to be twice as qualified. He has to be watching his manners all of the time. And, you know, these are the burdens that we carry as Black people on a daily basis. So when Dalu says we're tired, but then social media is such that, and Dalu's been looking at me and social media, I kind of educate and seek to be classy and seek to be eloquent, and that's how I channel my anger. I am angry at the situation, but you know, I've got channeling that anger is positive conduits like what we're doing now, and see how we can make change, because we have to make change at the grassroots level. It has to be on the board of governors. It's got to be on the, you know, you're voting, getting involved with your MPs, your mentoring,
absolutely,
kind of thing. That's and let me touch on that other point. Another thing that's been levied against us as Black people is, and you see the parallels in the States. Oh, you're always talking about white and Black crime. You're not talking about anything to do with Black on Black crime. Well, we're not talking about it. We're doing something about it. That's what all the Black mentorship programs are about. My Brother's Keeper, etc., which are criticised by white people, because when white people look at these, these initiatives, they say, well, why do you have a Brothers program? Why do you have a United Negro College Fund? Why do you have a National Advancement for the Association of Coloured People? Why do you have a mobile awards? Why do you have why do you have these things for Black people? It's because we're underrepresented, so we have to do it ourselves. That's why we have a BET. That's why we have a, Black Hair and Beauty. That's why we have a Pride magazine, because we have to, one of the curses, if you will, of living in the suburbs is I have to go to an urban area to get the food that I want, to get the hair products that I want, because it's like being a left-handed person in a right-handed person's world. It's not set up for us. We're not the default. We're the exception, and it's too much, for multinationals or for corporations to actually think that, well, this is a contributor to the system. These are people that pay taxes, and the Black pound and the Black dollar goes a long way in the community. But things are not set up for us as default. Same with COVID-19. Clap for carers was whitewashed. You see, clap for carers, when you see in the media, where you see, oh, let's clap the white nurses, let's clap the white doctors, when a large proportion of the doctors and nurses were minorities on the front line and felt that they were forced to have to go to work to protect their job. So let's look at this in the workplace. Any Black person now in the workplace, it would be incumbent on them to see what their mental health policies are, even in this time, because even in COVID, the stress and the stress of what's going on, some of us in our Black communities are facing, we've been fired, unfairly dismissed, for putting in grievances. We've had to go through all that racial discrimination, and we're seeing it on the news. So you're well within your rights to speak to your employer and say, look, the stress is overwhelming. I need to take time off, because our contemporaries, our white contemporaries, can take time off for stress, anxiety, or even throw a sickie for being out on a night out. You know what I mean? So I think these are real situations that we are going through as people of colour, and it has to be addressed. And it's amazing. If the tables were turned, Andy and Paddy, you'd actually, if you had to live in our shoes for a couple of days, you'd probably wonder why a lot of us are more insane than what we are.
And Paddy, sorry, did you have a question there, man?
It's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's sort of linked to that, and then going back to the very start. Auntie said about having his ears closed and his mouth open. I actually think my ears were open. And the problem was, at the time, when I was young, when I was 9, it was 1974 or whatever it was, and 75, and I heard everything that was coming in, and everything that come in was a certain attitude. As you've already touched on, TV determines, what was on television. Our biggest stars all had a very certain way of talking, and I remember 1975 and sitting outside in the sunshine, and someone coming to visit us who was older than us, who was 11, 12, 13. And that's when I was introduced to all the jokes that we know were prevalent then. Not that there's certain, and it's hard really, because even now in the job that I do in the caring profession, and as you said before, as Dalu said about, I've got colleagues who refuse to go to properties, and it's hurtful, because you try and have a conversation with someone just to sort of, why am I in a situation where I need to be having a conversation with someone and trying to sort of explain about how professional a person would be, and when it comes down to it, they don't want them there because of the colour of the skin. And it's an awful conversation. It's just, I can't imagine, I wouldn't, but what I was going to say was, Andy, but you're saying you don't about it's difficult, but you can say your point of view, because if I'm not having my point of view as a 53-year-old fella who grew up in a working class area where there was a Chinese chip shop and the doctor who was that's how I grew up. If I can't talk about their experiences and meeting and the first time I met someone who was black, and or what can I do? Because there's the only way we can actually talk about it. We've got to, if you don't start talking about it, it's the only way people are going to start learning.
Absolutely. I think social media has a lot to answer for as well.
Yeah. I honestly think the best bits that I've heard all the way through this are the bits that have made us laugh again. So we're trying to do things in a light-hearted way to some degree. It's come from a comedy background, this, but it just made me laugh, Dalu, when you're saying people are expecting you to be white and stuff like that. What other things have people got that's just comedy-related stereotyping? And I don't mean that to bring it up to enforce it. I mean the opposite. I mean, what kind of shit do people come out with?
You're an articulate gentleman, but about 2 or 3 times a week I hear, "Oh, you don't half speak well," and I'm thinking to myself, "How am I supposed to speak? How am I supposed to speak?" And if I was to always answer back in that way, and then suddenly I've got a chip on my shoulder because, do you see what I mean? So then it's like a thing there, you just have to kind of laugh it off and just say, because for the 20th time in over 6 months, you don't want to say, I've made a conscious effort for this because I'm over 6 foot, I'm over 230 pounds. I'm intimidating to a lot of people. So I know from the age of 14 and 15, as soon as I walked into a place, people felt intimidated. So I built a persona where I do speak in a way that it puts people at ease. It makes you feel that actually this guy is well read, he understands where he's coming from, and there's no aggression, right? But even when I'm still doing that, if it's something, and trust me, I've had to switch it on. I grew up in Essex. Do you know what I mean? I've had to fight occasionally, and it's amazing. The word microaggressions I do find funny because I love it when there's a new word created. But when I look at it, there is so many. And there are opposites. There are pluses to that. There's black guys that we've taken advantage of the whole stereotype of BBC and good dancer, good in bed, and some of us have fallen into that trap. So again, it's what Damian was saying, that it's sometimes you're in a rock and a hard place. If you try and be smart and articulate, you're a bounty. If you try and be still, relating to how your natural persona or natural self is, if you have rhythm, you have rhythm. If you can talk to women, you can talk to women, but that shouldn't go into that whole Lothario just wants to sleep with everyone mode. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's
and there's a real link back there to me towards mental health, because with all these podcasts we've talked about kind of male mental health as well, and some of the phrases we've talked about, dare to be different, don't conform to whatever it is, whatever's put on you as dare to be different. I think we've found is such an important thing for mental health, that people be who they're going to be, and it's just unfortunate that people to me, they're growing up in any society, in any bloody country, for any reason, feeling like they need to conform to just get by in life. It's just tragic, isn't it?
No one in the black community really has reminded me I'm black. That's all I can say. Society has, and it's just the little things. I loved the message that Damian put out this week, because we're both Christians. You know, we used to go to the same church, and I've always had the question beforehand. You know, white Jesus, where was Jesus born? Bethlehem, right? Let's just look at the indigenous people that live there, and you know, and that's the kind of thing. And then when you grow up with your heroes such as Muhammad Ali, and they bring these things to light, you know, you do think, you know, even me and my missus, we had a word yesterday to be like, should we consider moving to Canada? Yeah, it seems to be the most inclusive place in the world, you know. Because how many times she's come from Martinique to escape racism in France to come to the UK because she thought it was, you know, a land of new opportunity and all this, and then all those things that she's run away from, and you know, that like we do if you move from a different area, then you get if you move from a job and you're getting bullied, and then you go to a new job or a new school or whatever it is, and those certain things will reinforce how you've been treated. You're just like, you don't know where to start. You don't know, like, that's why I wanted to like have the focus today on what is the solution. You know, I've over the last couple of weeks, we've had right and left and everyone with an opinion. And one of the only people that I've seen kind of putting out messages of solutions has been Damian. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring him on today. And I put out a couple of questions to people in regards to what are the 3 things that you would change in this world. A magic one, if you, whatever you could do, what are the 3 things that you would change, and to better society? So we'll start off with, I guess, you, Andy.
Start for me. I think I wrote them down before. For me, for my own personal side of things, I'm not a massively active environmentalist in some ways, but I do think it's a big thing. I'm big into animals and the planet and all that kind of stuff. So I'd ban single-use plastics. I'd probably shut down supermarkets until there's some sort of ethics committee that can look after how we deal with things like that. I would. What was my other one? I would. If you're one of those people that parks in disabled bays, I think it probably should be made disabled. I think you should have your legs cut off, to be honest. That's one of my things. If you're someone that parks in disabled bays and you're not disabled, that's one of the kind of comedy ones there, but it's that's one of the things that irks me. I just can't believe there's people that do that. The plastics has been a big one. I know we're talking about this side of things. To be honest, because of the podcast as well, I would say that we would need to encourage from the very top for men to be open, vulnerable, and honest. I think that's got to happen. I think it's got to happen. It's an absolute plague that's killing. You know, we've said it before, haven't we? The stats are there. If you're an adult male under the age of 45, under the age of 49, then suicide is the biggest cause of death. So for me, we'd have to actively encourage people to talk out. And I think there are people at the top doing that now. And I guess to bring it back to what we're talking about now, just massive kudos to Marcus Rashford. I mean, I tweeted something today about the things that he's gone through trying to get people during the COVID times, this extension of the free school meals. I just think he's done a fantastic job of setting a real message within the community and getting that out, and making a huge difference to a lot of kids there. But yeah, they're mine.
Okay. What about yourself, Damian?
I think we need to educate. The history needs to be told. There's a double standard sometimes. People saying, it's in the past, but let's face it, 9/11's in the past. But we're not going to go to any Americans and say that was 19 years ago. Get over it. So we do need to educate and tell the story how it really happened. And what I mean is colonialism, slavery, the works. When we've done that, I think there has to be, and I'm grateful for allies, as I've said, on every side, in terms of every. If we're talking about, I mean, I presume the questions are to do with this topic. So, I think equality means that let's say for instance you have a certain class of people. Here we're talking about white people, okay? There has to be security in the dominant culture, that when the equilibrium is set, that they won't lose out. They need to realize that, you know, that's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see a security to realize that the dominant culture has already been enriched. Already. You know, it's already been enriched, it's already been culturally appropriated, it's already been gentrified. So an equilibrium, equal opportunities, no one will lose out. So there shouldn't be a fear. We're not after revenge, we're after equality and justice. Okay? And it's good we're not after revenge, right? So there doesn't have to be a fear of equality. Okay? So we need to be honest about history. We need to be not have a fear of equality. And also, you know, in a democracy, of course you have socialism, you have capitalism, and you know there's a distrust that anybody who comes up with some people distrust and think you're all the way socialist, so you just want everything for free, and you're a communist and you're Marxist. I think we need to differentiate what are actually political issues and what are actually basic human rights. So what I've said to some of my white allies is I've said, I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate your apology, and I want to see actions afterwards, but please understand that I'm not thanking you for suddenly being quote unquote woke. Because, for instance, that would be tantamount to a woman thanking a man who hasn't groped her in the office all week and hasn't lured her. The fact of the matter, it's her basic human right to be treated with dignity and respect. So, you know, what we need to realize is what are basic human rights and what are politics, and not, or else we will be going around in this academic discussion, and it's luxurious for some to sit around and have academic discussions on Facebook and on other platforms where some of us are literally either dying from, you know, being physically killed, but our dreams are being due to mental health. And while I'm on the subject, and this is obviously more of an American slang, but you know the double standards about abortion, you know aborting children. The fact of the matter is, even if you have a black child that's born, okay, and they are killed, and this happens in UK police force as well, they are killed, then their dreams are being aborted, you know, their destinies are being aborted. So the fact it's still tantamount to, you know, they're being wiped off the face of the earth anyway. So let's not make things political when they're actually basic human rights. Let's be honest about the past and the present, and let's realize that equality for all will mean that none will lose out. So those are my three things.
Absolutely. And Paddy, I think you had a question, but would you be able to give us your three as well?
Yeah, the question is, and this might be completely the wrong tone, so, you know, I do apologise and just hear me out on this. I completely agree that education is the way forward. Anyone that doesn't agree with that must be just daft. You can't erase history, but what you can do is talk about it, right? I completely agree with that. In Germany, I've seen if you like, young people who've gone to Auschwitz, young German children. It's on the curriculum, and they've gone there and they've seen it, and it's awful what they see, because obviously there's no other way of describing it. However, there is a rise in right-wing politics over there, and I know it's about solution, or it's about finding solutions. But so how do how do you get that right balance? How do you get that right balance? Because as much as schools are doing it, there's obviously a wealth of history from families of this, that, and the other that are still supporting them beliefs. How do you do that? It's such a big thing, isn't it? That's my question. Or is it a statement? I don't know.
Yeah.
So if he had a magic wand, well, mine were nothing to do with it. mine were like bring back corporal punishment for people put tomato sauce on a Sunday roast. Because, you know, seriously, I think that's absolutely outrageous. I've never heard anything like it. If I was to go back, I would like to. If he had a magic wand, it's my real concern is the fact that for years and years and years, those in power and huge amounts of wealth have actually done what they want, and they've massively impacted on generations and generations of people's and cultures' lives, and even now you can still, it's there, and that's what's caused division. That's what's caused absolutely everything, and that's the part. And I don't know what you do about that. That's the second one. And if they had a magic wand as well to make society better, Liverpool would win the Premier League.
Yeah. What about yourself, Righteous?
First of all, well, just on a personal level, I think that all kids should have mandatory sports training as a kid. Not any sport in particular, just sports. I think there's a lot of positive, productive mentalities that you can take from learning a sport, including healthy competition. Because I was a bitch ass kid when I was a kid, really, and I wasn't really encouraged to do sports or anything like that. So that's one thing I think people could learn from. I think that'll make a better mindset for people. Second one, I think black people and white people need marriage counselling. I don't think black people and white people generally. We don't know how to speak to each other about racial matters at all. And I think, considering the number of centuries we've been around each other, we should have at least gotten over that hurdle. You know, think about this on a singular level. How long does it take you to get inside a woman's pants? Probably not as long as it takes for black people and white people to have a freaking conversation. You know, it shouldn't be that hard. And it's right in front of our faces. You know, because I mean, the people who don't see race, and then the people who blame this guy for that guy. And I think that's one of the things that on both sides we need to get past. We both got work to do, but yeah, essentially we need to sit down and have some kind of counsel. This one, I don't know if this counts as a third thing, but I'm just going to say it anyway. I've always liked the idea, because we were talking about the potential for equality before. I've always liked the idea that, you know, blacks, Asians, Chinese, whites, whatever group you're in, guys want equal footing, and then there's the power that everyone wants to achieve. And I'd just love it if it could be like a Game of Thrones situation where everyone could just battle each other for that power, that glory, whatever it is that people are trying to achieve, and you have it for as long as you have it, and then someone else can come and knock you off.
The sad thing is, that's how it has been happening, mate. It is Game of Thrones since biblical times. Nation versus nation. That was races. That was cultures, wasn't it?
It was, and it was fair at one point. But imagine like two guys going for the world championships, and one guy doesn't have the right studs on his trainers. One team doesn't have the right studs on the trainers, but they've still got to play with them top studs on the trainers. And then the other team's got like world class Adidas shit. I mean, that's what I mean when I talk about equality. You know, everyone's equipped to do that battle. So it's just a case of what you put into it, and then that determines who's going to be the winner, or who's going to be the victor for however long you're going to be the victor for. You know, that's what I like about that. I don't have an actual solution as to how to bring that up. a brother can dream.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Can I jump back in with my corrected ones, given I've totally misread the tact of the question then?
If you say Liverpool will win the Premier League as well, then
Admittedly, I do think that the history thing is a massive thing, and I do think that I was very, very, very ignorant of history. And then I think when I got into my 30s, I had a lot of time on my hands traveling for work, and I ended up watching a lot of programs and drawing a timeline and understanding the scale of history of life and a little bit about the history of Britain. And we only learn, or maybe I'm completely wrong, but I only learned about a bit about the Romans, a bit about world history, and then the Tudors onwards. Well, that's not enough.
That's the rest of us.
Enough.
Yeah.
That is not enough. That doesn't explain properly about things like colonialism, how it spread, empires, all that kind of stuff, going way further back to that, about that we all come from some area around Ethiopia, we think, and then we spread out over different, 200,000 years ago. That, to me, is history that is totally missing. You've got to take in the full picture. Like that the fact that we don't learn about that kind of stuff, to me, is insane.
Yeah. I remember growing up and England gave back Hong Kong, and I remember asking, what do they mean gave it back? Like, it's just like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
It's crazy to think when you look at how massive the cities are, when you look at all of the harbour cities and Liverpool and everything, and the majesty of them and the buildings, and you think where that's come from.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, my three would just be, I'm a bit of a fantasist, as many of you will know. I just think we need to completely dismantle everything that we see as the norm, i.e. how governments are run. Are we really in a democracy? Communism hasn't worked. Capitalism hasn't worked. Globalization hasn't worked. There needs to be a new set where if it is going to be equal for all, it needs to be equal for all, i.e. For everybody, all included. That's the one thing. So dismantling of how we see things. But I think that there's the system of education, because knowledge is power, needs to be rooted. So we don't forget and we don't repeat the same mistakes as our history, but we understand where we come from. And again, just do more things with love. Everything that we should do, everything that we should speak, should come from an element of love in our hearts. And I think that's gone now. Everyone wants their voice heard and opinion heard, and it's a tough it's a tough old world that we're living in at the moment. So that's my fantasist kind of. If I had a magic wand and I could just change everything, I mean, democracy with two parties. But realistically, we're in a government now that we have not even elected the last two leaders of our bloody government here. Think about that. Mm-hmm. So why is this? And we as a democratic state, we should have done something. We should. Do you know what I mean? There are other options than just going, oh, he would do. Oh, she's left. He would do. And I think, a lot of things just need to change, man. That's all.
Billy, one of the best comebacks. Sorry, I just wanted to say it, and we can get it out if not. But you shared an audio message from your dad on a WhatsApp group when you'd asked these questions, and it's only a short clip. Do you mind if we play that? Because actually, his solutions I thought were fantastic.
Absolutely, it's actually on my phone at the moment.
No, I should be able to play it.
Yeah.
Should be able to play it through my mic. Tell if you can't hear it. 1 second.
Yes, I can say racism is an evil that grows. It grows on people. So really, everyone needs to fight racism, even from the smallest things like jokes. Someone is being, trying to have humor that's based on race. They need to be corrected because it escalates from little things like that and grows. Secondly, you really need to focus terminating cruelty to any species, whether it's an animal or anything. Because if you can be cruel to maybe a dog or a cat or sheep or cow, what stops you being cruel to another human being if you see them as worthless? So cruelty needs to be stemmed. Everyone needs to be ethical with everything that's living. And the third thing, last but not least, if everyone worked to realize who they are spiritually, they would see the oneness in everything. And then they would realize they wouldn't have need to be taught to thou shalt not kill or harm any other being, because we are all of the same nature. Our true nature is love. Love is what we are. And until we have that within ourselves, we cannot give it out. So first we love ourselves, and then we will grow love. We will have enough love to love others. I hope you have a good interview, my boy. All the best. I'll see you later. Bye.
That's the old man there.
Did everyone catch that?
Yes.
Yeah, brilliant.
What a man, Dalu. What a man.
Absolutely. I think that's probably a good way to end the show. But I think is there anything that anyone wanted to kind of have in summarization, kind of moving forward?
As usual, I can't keep my mouth shut, as I promised at the start. But I've got a question. So some of us are comedians and so on, and we've got the things with faulty towers and all this kind of thing happening as well in regard to censorship and stuff like that. And I genuinely don't know where I kind of stand on all this, but how does comedy can do right in my eyes? Can it? Comedy can shine light into places and make people think about things, whether it be racism or people suffering in different ways. I genuinely think that's the case. But it can also do damage, can't it? So in relation to this, what I mean by there is reinforcing stereotypes and all that kind of thing. But Damian, what do you think in relation to comedy? What kind of comedy do we think is going to be good in the future, and what kind of comedy should we be avoiding?
Good question. Definitely, I think, some of the stuff has to be taken under advisement, and that goes the whole spectrum of women, LGBTQIA+, the whole spectrum. So even with race, there has to be, if you're not sure, if in doubt, leave it out. Check with a decent authority of like someone like Dalu, who is putting himself, who has that empathy. I think so. There has to be some self-censorship and put yourself in that person's shoes. And as you said, we've come a long way from the whole Jim Davidson, Bernard Manning era, definitely. But I think, we could still have light-hearted humor, but just we could be sensible about it. It is doable. It is definitely doable. I don't know if does that answer your question.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, just you're the comedians in the room. What do you think in regard to that then, Dalu? Righteous, Paddy?
I think anything is on the chopping board for comedians. It's about how you deliver it. One of the best jokes I've heard was someone who said that they had terminal cancer. Doctor said, "How long have I got?" 4, 3, 2, and that was the punchline. It was a Bob Monkhouse joke, and I think there are ways that you can deliver a message, deliver a punchline, deliver a joke without it having to ridicule or completely disrespect a race, culture, or being there's certain jokes I've even had to cut out because I thought actually I'd do an accent and a head, and really, if someone was doing it the opposite, would I feel the same? But again, I think it's a very difficult one. Very difficult because I have got a dark sense of humour. So certain things that I may find funny, someone else completely can find offensive. And I think that is the platform for comedy. But I think if we are going to be now moving forward in an era of equality, it has to really, as Damian said, if in doubt, leave it out, because it's just not worth it. If you know what I mean. Sometimes it can be. But then again, you have seen it now where comedians have done something. Friends, prime example. Whoever would have thought Friends would have been offensive to anyone? No one in this world would have thought Friends would have been offensive to anyone. But as the rise of LGBTQ comes and we are more aware of certain issues that are raised, it's now being changed and edited. Gavin and Stacey, I have no issue with. I've never met a black person who has an issue with it. I've watched it with black friends and white friends and all sorts, and we've enjoyed it. So when people are saying, "Oh, BLM are taking this away and this away," it's like I think there's a little bit of fake news going out there that's perpetuating things to cause division, because no unity, divide and conquer. It's really easy to rule the masses within chaos.
Yeah. I think that's the difficulty, is about being divisive. I got someone sent to me the Chris Rock clip of when he talked about Rodney King.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time it was like about how people should behave a certain way to not be arrested. I don't know if anyone's seen it. And that was sent to, now it's a brilliant piece of comedy, but the person that sent to me and I knew was sent it to me because he was making a point, saying, you see,
so we didn't see the irony.
It's difficult. Comedy's comedy, but it can be easily used, and for the right or wrong reasons, and that's what you've got to be really careful about.
Absolutely.
Righteous.
Look, these comedy. One thing that bugs me about all this is that these are basically retroactive ass whoopings. No one had an issue with these things. Here's the irony. The things that we actually had an issue with, nobody fixed for us. Like, for example...
Education, yes. I don't care about a show.
It's like the Black and White Minstrels. That reached its peak when the Race Relations Act in this country in 1968 came out. And that was I think that was one of the cannon fodders that led to it. 1968, it was still going in the late 70s, and they even went through the trouble of employing Lenny Henry. That's what they did for the shit that we didn't like. All the shit that we're okay with, people are leaving it 20 years and they're making a big hoo-ha about it, And like I said, it's just retroactive ass whoopings. And the thing is, it's, as far as I'm aware, it's impossible to police something today by tomorrow's standards when you don't know what tomorrow's standards are going to be. It's like you said, Dalu, whoever thought that Friends would be the subject of controversy. We can't just keep changing. We can't just cancel things because we feel differently than the way we did 20 years ago all of a sudden. I don't think they should cancel Friends at the same time. I don't think they should cancel Love Thy Neighbour, even if it's only as a document of how we perceive comedy in the past. Just leave it where the fuck it is,
But righteous, just as devil's advocate, I hate that expression, but hopefully you know what I mean. But there might be a gay guy watching this right now who's in transition, who may have a kid, and when they watch that Chandler scene when he's rejecting, and it makes them both feel away and they feel uncomfortable and that's I think the danger of it. I grew up watching Bo Selector, and I enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it, mate. And then I thought to myself, let me just look back at what Lee France says. What's he apologizing for? I didn't get it. I promise you, because my comedic mind was like, no, this is funny, man. Like, I remember Bo Selector. And then when I typed in Bo Selector Trisha, and typed in Bo Selector something else, I was a bit like, he was on the cusp, man. There was things that he's coming in, and Trisha doesn't speak with a Jamaican accent, does she? And he comes in, he's like, yeah, man, Trisha, man, me want me fried chicken, boy, and doing all of this. And it was a bit like, and you know, the big hips and the winding, and it was just like, okay. Like, if I was Trisha, I'd probably find that a bit, do you know what I mean? So, and if I was a Jamaican woman now, you know, is that the stereotypical da, you know? And now I guess that's the insinuations to it. But the thing is, I think sometimes the BBC or media seem to be speaking for black people when they've not really come out with these things. Like, I'll be really honest with you, like,
the BBC speak,
you know,
the BBC speak for everyone, don't they?
Oh,
I think they can speak for everyone in comedy and in general.
Yeah. And yeah, it's just one of those. It's go on, sorry.
No, sorry, you go. I thought you finished. You go ahead.
No, I'd finish. It was just kind of that element of there's no discussions. Like, people are not talking to general white people to understand what they are going through or thinking. And people are not speaking to general black people to find out what they're going through and thinking. And we're all making these conscious decisions based on like media clips for like 2 minutes. And we're cascading a whole generation, a culture, a race through that. And it's very divisive. But I think awareness was key. And that's what I love about the Black Lives Matter movement, absolute awareness, because we do go through this. It's a very much a real thing for us. But yeah, I think right now everything has been fueled in a divisive manner rather than something where, if you look at Martin Luther King, that was from a manner of unity. And he still had black and white people on the civil rights march with him, you know. So yeah, I'll leave it there.
Can I ask a question? Dave, I'm just going to ask you, we've used the phrase history repeating itself. Do you believe that this time momentum is going to stick and it's going to evolve into change?
Very good question. I do. Let's, you know, and as Dalu said about Dr. King, that's some, you know, he passed away some, 1968. So that was some time ago. That was, 52 years ago. Same year as Enoch Powell's Rivers of Blood speech. But we'll leave that alone. But the thing is, that was a tipping point. But then, it's almost, when we look back now, you could argue he died in vain. I think there was incremental progress and there was a big shift, but there's still a long way to go. And I feel that now is one of those big shifts, but it's not going to be a big bang. It's a big shift. So there's still going to be a lot more to go. It's not going to be all just going to be solved just right now, but it is a monumental shift. Most definitely. And something else came to me before about you have the kind of white guilt complex when you talk about racism. People go, oh, it works both ways. Now, if you understand the term racism is to do with systemic structures and power structures. So even in black countries, there haven't been that. You might look at Idi Amin as an example, but there haven't been those systemic structures even in black countries. So racism is about power and structure. So that's why a white person could be racist, a black person could be prejudiced, not making it right. Of course, if I call your race a slur based on your race, it is out of order, it's offensive, etc., etc. But the argument that is being shut down a lot with white guilt is, oh, it works both ways, because when I was, I don't know, when I was on the street corner and somebody was rude to me, or I was a shop assistant and as a white person, somebody was, some black youth said something offensive. So we have to understand that we're talking about a systematic situation. Also, I'd say that microaggressions count for a lot of what's going on. So we need to not be lazy and learn how to pronounce people's names properly. We need to learn that just because, nobody asks a white Irish person, where they're from originally, because we just assume that they're from here, right? So, let's not get hung up at, probing where if somebody's from here, they're born here, then they're born here. Let's not, these are microaggressions. As Dalu said, somebody falling over themselves because somebody that's from Africa has a Queen's English accent. All of these things are things that we have to be conscious. And as a black person, I'm conscious. I'm conscious that, there are some 11 countries in East Asia and Southeast Asia. So I'm not just going to, somebody isn't going to be by default be Chinese. There could be Malaysian, there could be from Taiwan, there could be from Thailand, there could be from Hong Kong. So, let's not be lazy. Let's be careful with microaggressions. And my point, Righteous made a good segue. I'm all for interracial relationships, but let's be careful, because I've had people put down their own race and say, I want to be with a white person. I don't want to be with a black person. They've actually put down their own race, and later, as time has gone on, they've kind of broadened their horizon. So we're not anybody's second choice. That's one point. But two, if you're going to be in an interracial relationship, make sure you have the talk first, because sooner or later, race will come up.
That's true. That's true. It may not be with you as a couple, but granddad and uncle and auntie are going to want to know.
Exactly. So, none of this, I don't see colour, because you need to see colour. For instance, when you're driving, you see the colour of traffic lights, or else you'd be dead. So the fact is, you do need to see colour. But you need to, as the traffic light analogy tells you, the lights show you how to navigate safely, so that both of you can share the same space. So that's the same with colour. You should see colour. You shouldn't see one better than the other. But, if you're going to go into an interracial relationship, you need to have the talk, because sooner or later it's going to come up, and you don't want, one part that's getting all bent out of shape and the other part is like, I don't see colour. I don't see what you're getting bent out of shape for. So, let's put everything out on the table.
Yeah, and that works both ways, audience, because I see a lot of interracial relationships, and you get a lot of off people in the black community treating white women wrongly. Why are you taking our man and all that, and then vice versa. Oh God, you know what she likes, don't you? A bit of chocolate, and so it happens on both sides of the equation. Spot on about the microaggressions. I never really kind of saw it like that, but absolutely. Right, I think
just wanted to clarify. Someone said black people and white people need marriage counselling. Marriage counselling was just like my metaphor for the fact that black people and white people are on this earth together. So we are essentially married, and there needs to be like some kind of mediation or some kind of way to get people to communicate with each other, so they can get their real thoughts and opinions out, and then we can work and build as humans. I do agree with what you say about interracial relationships, because at the risk of losing 3 black points on my black card, I am in one. But yeah, that's just my metaphor for. I was talking about black people and white people in general as a group, rather than individually. But it still holds true either way. What you say?
Absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much, Damian, for coming in and joining us today for Men Don't Talk.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Yes.
Thanks, guys.
Well, really appreciate it, Damien.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Excellent. And just from you guys, Andy and Paddy, how did you find that? Was it uncomfortable for you? Was there some things that you thought, have I got the right to challenge it? How do you guys feel?
Andy, do you want to go?
No, Paddy, you go.
Well, we're throwing the balls to each other here.
Yeah.
I was. It was a conversation that I was looking forward to. But that's probably like a lot of people. You think, if you're going to put it out there, you just got to talk openly. And if that comes across as being ignorant, then obviously that's an apology. But you've got to sort of try and put things out. And I have listened to everything that's been said, and I found a lot of it interesting. I do believe my concern is, and I think I've had this conversation before, is I personally don't want history to repeat itself and to lose that momentum. And that's why I was talking about education before, when you can put so much into education, but can the influence of historical, cultural influences and family impact on what you're trying to do for young people moving forward? And I don't know what the answer to that is really. But I just thought the level that you've actually spoke about is something I wasn't really aware of, like you said, sort of the conversations, and I have really had to sort of think back about everything really. It's made me more aware of conversations that have gone on and really sort of hit home. I have really enjoyed it. I would like to actually. It'd be a shame if we don't actually do it again, and we don't actually sort of really share about our perspective, because I think if us as a group can't actually share fully what our experiences have been, then how can we move forward? So that's all I'd say from that point of view. I would be really interested in doing it again down the line, just to see how things have gone.
Yeah. Oh yeah, a special 3 months on, just to see if the hashtag is still trending, just to see if those Blackout Tuesday posts were still standing.
We'll still be black. Yeah. We'll still be black, as stop being a trend. We've got to live. We've got to live with it. So
yeah, indeed.
But what about you, Andy? When I say, yeah.
Sorry, sir.
I've got to admit, I can sometimes talk without thinking as well. And like you were saying, Dalu, I've got quite a dark sense of humour. And I'm aware that even with my own friends, I'll push the boundaries. I've got a friend who's overweight, and occasionally, we rib each other a little bit. And it's not in any way, it's all love. That friendship is all love. We deeply love and respect each other. So there's a balancing act where we'll have a bit of a kind of like sparring and sometimes and that kind of thing. And I'm very, very conscious today that I could say the wrong thing. And I shouldn't be as conscious maybe as that, because it is all love. This platform, part of this, it's everybody's, but this platform is partly, come about from myself as well. And it is about understanding people. That's all it's about. That's all I wanted to do, was understand people's personal stories, experiences, how it shaped their lives, and try and inform other guys and move forward. And so I guess I shouldn't have that nervousness, but I've got to admit, I feel a little bit nervous sometimes that I will say the wrong thing around certain minorities, in certain situations. It's a strange thing, isn't it? And I guess I shouldn't feel like that.
It's background.
Yeah,
it's background to how you're brought up and where you're from and your experiences. That's that's where it all comes from.
Yeah,
top and bottom of it.
But no, it's great. For me, it's all about the personal experiences. I let the politicians deal with the statistics and the economic statistics and all that kind of stuff. I am deeply interested in people's personal stories and experiences.
And who thought David Icke would have been right, on a lot of things all those years when people were laughing at him on Wogan?
He said so many things, he has to be right about a few.
I know. The only one I don't get is the lizard people. That's a new one I'm waiting for, but that's another episode. But Damian, thank you so much for your time today. If we can, are you able to share where people can perhaps follow you, can find you on social media platforms, and see you as a musician as well?
Yep. At D_A_Bloomfield is my Instagram and Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Periscope. And in terms of my playing, I come from that long tradition of playing at church, really. So that's kind of where I'm currently at in terms of where I play. But my day job as I'm in the corporate sector. So my Instagram page is I'm a music historian as well. I post a lot of stuff about different genres and that kind of thing. But I think recently the focus has been on what's going on currently. So there's some food for thought there on my pages. Some stuff I've copyrighted, if you will, that's come out of my own head. So I'm just encouraging people to not be weary in this season. Let's kind of see if we can do it on a grassroots level, just come together. And as you said, Andy, the politicians, they'll catch on later, but I think these kind of platforms are really necessary. So anytime you want me back, I'll definitely it's been a pleasure. I'm very humbled. Thank you.
Absolutely. And if you guys do follow him, watch out for him playing the bass guitar. If you are interested in your blues, in your soul music, this guy is the one.
Definitely.
I don't honestly, I can't rave more about this guy. I've brought people up from down south going, you got to come to my church and see this guy play bass. It's like Bootsy Collins in the reader. I'm really kind of multi-talented musician, but really something dangerous on the bass guitar, this gentleman. But obviously a mind that's full of wisdom as well. So definitely a good advocate for equality. And obviously a good advocate for Black civil rights as well. So thank you very much for coming on today, Damian.
Thank you,
Guys,
guys.
sorry, just a 10-second question. We may have sparked a listener's interest into Black history. We keep talking about education and so on. People can look it up themselves. I'm sure they can. And I myself have done a little bit prior to this and will read more and mainly look at YouTube because I'm thick. But are there any books, any sources that you would recommend for people that have been sparked by this that say, I want to learn about Black history? Where should I go? What should I do?
Good question. Wow. Well, I can only say what I'm reading. I'm actually on a journey myself about reading a lot of stuff because obviously I wasn't taught a lot of in school. So I'll tell you what's on my reading list currently. There's a book called Is Christianity the White Man's Religion? I'm reading that now. That's by a guy called Dr. Antipas Harris. And that's exploring the whole thing of, as we've alluded to, the way how, the white Jesus, and, that's another concept that me and Dalu were talking about, how Christianity was used. I mean, I haven't got all the way through the book, but this is a kind of a valid point. Christianity was used to in colonialism to loot and steal from the African nations, and then kind of that kind of thing. So that's a big part of Black history. Also, there's also a book called White Fragility by Robin. I can't pronounce I can't think of it off the top of my head. D'Angelo, I think her name is. White Fragility. So that's a book worthwhile reading, because I think if you read that, that'll open you up to read about Black history, because it talks about the concepts that would make people defend not learning about it in the first place. After that, anything like I said about YouTube, add anything Malcolm X, anything Dr. King. Anything there's a lady called Julie, I can't remember her last name. She does an experiment on basically on white reactions to experiments in terms of white reactions to Black people. Yeah. And I mean, now nothing's wrong with the internet. It's just, I mean, even Wikipedia, people slag up Wikipedia. But the thing is, what you need to do is read through them and look for cross-references. Because now it's so easy. You could do, it's like a library at fingertips, and then drill down into the articles. Some stations are quite, like people say, The Guardian's leftist, or, Fox News is rightist, or so look at certain sources. I mean, BBC News does have decent documentaries. Other than to be fair, I heard the Rivers of Blood one the other day was a bit just touched around the points. No disrespect to the BBC. So basically, I'd start with the white fragility stuff. As I said, anything by the major guys, and but just be discerning if there is something that is if there is a traitor or a Candace Owens or a Morgan Freeman, if you will, don't. There is usually a hidden agenda behind it. Candace Owens is being funded, so look at the agenda behind the agenda, or the story behind the story,
Great.
I think that, does that make sense?
It does, yeah. Great.
I can get those names of the books to you.
Yeah, certainly, yeah. We can put them on a footnote for people, that's fine. Yeah, definitely. Great.
Brilliant. Excellent. Yes, I've got a Google Drive as well. That was doing the rounds just as the Black Lives Movement took off, and it's got a list of good books that are relevant to read for all audiences to educate a little bit. But also one guy I've been listening to is called Akala, Akala, Akala. Just very informative young man, and he just delivers a message in a very articulate way that anyone can understand, and it's really good. So that's my 2 cents, gents. Thank you so much again.
Okay, superb. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Damian,
so much.
for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Bye, boys.
Okay.